No!
You have just entered the realm of dawn. Welcome back, our fans of horror. These are the true harrowing stories of real nightmares come to life. Don't pass this one up because it's going to get downright thrilling. Are you ready for a true, sinister roller coaster ride? Well, you've got one coming. Let's get into it. In the last story in this video, we will be covering the infamous toy box killer, so if you stay till the end, you'll get the ultimate freaky treat of them all. The Pasadena Stalker.
In 2018, in Pasadena, California, Sarah, a 25-year-old college student who had been living alone, took her usual weekly walk to get supplies for her small art studio. It was a clear evening, just like all the others. But what Sarah didn't know is that this night was going to be like no other night she had ever experienced. Before we dive into today's story, I want you to imagine this. You're walking alone at night, and suddenly you feel eyes on you. Your heart starts racing, and you realize someone's following you. What would you do? Well, that's exactly what happened to our protagonist in this chilling tale of survival. Today, we're going to explore a story that'll make you think twice about walking alone after dark. It's a tale of terror, quick thinking, and a shocking revelation that will leave you questioning just how well you know the people in your life. Our story begins on a crisp autumn evening in a bustling city. A young woman, let's call her Sarah, had just finished a late-night session at her art studio. She was feeling accomplished, having put the final touches on a piece she'd been working on for weeks. As she locked up the studio and stepped out into the cool night air, she had no idea that her life was about to take a terrifying turn. Sarah lived alone in a small studio apartment just a few blocks away. She'd made this walk countless times before, always feeling safe in the familiar surroundings of her neighborhood. But tonight was different. As she turned the corner onto her street, she felt an eerie sensation creep up her spine. It was that feeling you get when you know someone's watching you, but you can't quite place where it's coming from. At first, Sarah tried to shake it off. She told herself she was just being paranoid, that the late hour and her overactive imagination were playing tricks on her. But as she quickened her pace, she heard footsteps behind her, matching her speed. Her heart began to race as the reality of the situation set in. She was being followed. Now, I want you to put yourself in Sarah's shoes for a moment. Imagine the fear coursing through your veins as you realize you're not alone on that dark street. What would you do? Would you run, scream, try to confront your pursuer? Sarah's mind raced through her options. She knew her apartment was still a few blocks away, and she didn't want to lead this mysterious stalker right to her doorstep. In a split-second decision, she veered off her usual route and headed towards a 24-hour supermarket she knew was nearby. As she approached the brightly lit store, Sarah glanced over her shoulder, finally catching a glimpse of her pursuer. It was a man, dressed in dark clothing, his face obscured by a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. The sight of him sent a chill down her spine, and she practically sprinted the last few yards to the supermarket's entrance. Once inside, Sarah didn't stop. She headed straight for the back of the store, where she knew the restrooms were located. Her plan was to hide out there and call for help. But as she pushed open the door to the women's restroom, she heard the main store doors open again. Her stalker had followed her inside. Sarah's mind was racing. She knew she couldn't stay in the bathroom. It was a dead end, and she'd be trapped if he came in after her. That's when she noticed something that would become her lifeline. A ceiling panel that looked loose enough to move. Without hesitation, Sarah climbed up onto the sink. Her hands were shaking as she pushed at the ceiling panel, praying it would give way. To her relief, it moved easily, revealing a small crawl space above. Just as she heard footsteps approaching the bathroom door, Sarah hoisted herself up into the ceiling, pulling the panel back into place behind her. For what felt like an eternity, Sarah lay there in the darkness, trying to control her breathing. She could hear the bathroom door open, followed by the sound of someone checking each stall. Her heart was pounding so loudly, she was sure it would give her away. But then, a stroke of luck. The store manager's voice echoed through the bathroom, asking if everything was all right. Sarah heard her stalker mumble something about looking for his girlfriend before quickly exiting. It was her chance. Moving as quietly as she could, Sarah crawled through the ceiling space, following the sounds of the store below. She found another loose panel near the back exit and carefully lowered herself down. Without looking back, she ran as fast as her legs would carry her, fumbling with her keys before finally getting inside and locking the doors. As Sarah sat on the couch nervously, she called 911, her voice shaking as she recounted what had just happened. The dispatcher assured her that officers would be on the lookout for the man she described. Now, you might be thinking this is where our story ends, with Sarah safely escaping her mysterious stalker. But the truth is, this is where things take an even darker turn. About an hour after Sarah's harrowing escape, a police officer on patrol noticed a car speeding down the highway. When he pulled the vehicle over, he immediately recognized the driver from the description given earlier that night. It was Sarah's stalker. But here's where the story goes from terrifying to downright chilling. As the officer approached the car, he noticed the driver seemed unusually nervous. Following his instincts, the officer asked to search the vehicle. What he found in the trunk would haunt him for years to come. Inside, there was rope, zip ties, duct tape, and a shovel. But that wasn't all. Tucked beneath these sinister tools was a hand-drawn map detailing a remote location where X marked a very specific spot. It didn't take a detective to figure out what that X represented. It was where the stalker had planned to bury Sarah alive. As if this discovery wasn't shocking enough, the true identity of the stalker was about to be revealed. When the officer ran the man's ID, he was stunned to learn that this wasn't some random predator. The man staring back at him from the driver's license photo was none other than Sarah's ex-boyfriend, a man she had dated briefly over a year ago. This revelation adds a whole new layer of horror to our story. It wasn't just a random act of violence. Sarah had narrowly escaped. It was a carefully planned attack by someone she once knew and trusted. Someone who had spent months, perhaps even a year, plotting his revenge for reasons we may never fully understand. The ex-boyfriend was immediately arrested and charged with attempted kidnapping, among other serious offenses. As for Sarah, she was left to grapple with the terrifying reality of how close she had come to an unthinkable fate. This story serves as a chilling reminder of the dangers that can lurk in the shadows, sometimes hiding behind familiar faces. It's a testament to the importance of trusting your instincts and being aware of your surroundings. Sarah's quick thinking and resourcefulness in the face of extreme danger undoubtedly saved her life that night. But it also raises unsettling questions about the people we let into our lives. How well do we really know those around us? And how can we protect ourselves from threats we never see coming? As we reflect on Sarah's harrowing experience, it's important to remember that while stories like this are terrifying, they're also relatively rare. So the next time you're walking alone at night and you get that feeling that something is not quite right, don't ignore it. Trust your instincts, stay alert, and remember, sometimes the difference between safety and danger is a split-second decision. And with that, I'll leave you to ponder this chilling tale. If you found this story as unsettling as we did, make sure to like and subscribe for more true crime and mysterious events. Don't get caught alone, but if you ever do, use any means possible to escape and think fast, just like Sarah did.
The Watcher.
The Watcher, inspired by a true story. Westfield, New Jersey, was the kind of town where shutters were painted, hedges were trimmed, and secrets, if they existed, were tucked away beneath layers of manicured perfection. The air there held a kind of old money stillness, like the houses themselves were trying to remember something important. In the summer of 2014, Derek and Maria Broadus believed they'd found their dream home. 657 Boulevard stood 3 stories tall, with elegant roof gables, a wide front porch that wrapped like a smile around its proud face. Built in 1905, it carried the weight of history, sturdy, dignified, full of stories. They were in their late 30s, successful, with 3 young children. The house was expensive, nearly $1.3 million, but they could afford it. They were ready to settle into the American dream, but the house, it was not ready for them. 3 days after closing, Derek stayed late one night to paint. The silence of the empty house hummed around him. The kind of silence that makes you check over your shoulder without knowing why. That's when he saw it. A white envelope, no stamp, no return address. It was addressed simply, "The new owner." He opened it, expecting perhaps a welcome from the neighbors. What he read made the room colder, heavier, like something unseen had entered within him. "Dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighborhood." It was polite. At first. 657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now, and as it approaches its 110th birthday, I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s, and my father watched in the 1960s. It is now my time. Derek frowned. Was this a joke? Do you know the history of the house? Do you know what lies within the walls of 657 Boulevard? Why are you here? I will find out. He read the last line 3 times. Welcome, my friends. Welcome. Let the games begin. Derek turned, suddenly aware of the dozens of darkened windows looking in from every house on the block. Was someone watching him right now? He left that night with every light off and every instinct screaming. He called the police immediately. The officer read the letter, expression neutral, then shifted. "Do you have any enemies?" he asked. No, they didn't. Yet days later, Maria, his wife, found another envelope. This one was worse. Much worse. "You have children. I have seen them. So far, I think there are 3. Are there more on the way? Do you need to fill the house with the young blood I requested?" She felt the bottom drop out of her stomach. The letter went on. "Once I know their names, I will call to them and draw them to me." She dropped the letter. Her hands trembled. Derek contacted the police again. Investigators came. They dusted the envelope. No prints. They combed the neighborhood. Nothing. They interviewed neighbors, but no one saw anything. Nothing suspicious. And yet, someone knew intimate details about the Broadus children. Their birth order, their nicknames, even their movements. Whoever the watcher was, he or she was close. More letters followed. "I watch from many places. I watch you as you sleep in your bed. I watch your children as they play. I watch the house and wait for it to call to me. It is not yet time, but soon." Each note arrived with more venom, more obsession. The watcher referred to the family by name now, commented on renovations they'd made to the home, noticed when they had contractors over. He described in detail their children's behavior in the yard. It was as if the house itself had grown eyes and a mind. Terrified, the Broaduses stopped bringing their children to the property. They installed security systems, hired private investigators, even brought in a former FBI profiler. His conclusion? Whoever wrote the letters was deeply intelligent, had a sense of entitlement over the home, and likely lived nearby. The tone of the letters, he said, read like someone who had been rejected by the house. Still, there was no proof. Derek suspected a man who lived just behind them, whose home offered a perfect view of the house, but police cleared him. Another neighbor had a mentally ill adult son. Another still had a history of disputes with former owners of 657, but none of them could be tied to the letters. No fingerprints, no DNA, no camera footage. Just threats, fear, and silence. Time passed. The Broadesses never moved in. The dream had rotted. They tried to sell the house, but the letters made it unsellable. Who wants $1 million home stalked by an unseen predator? One buyer got cold feet after hearing about the story. Another tried to lowball them. The Broadesses, desperate and drowning in mortgage debt, tried to demolish the house and split the lot. But the town of Westfield, ever obsessed with preserving its character, said no. The neighborhood turned on them. Rumors spread. Some thought the couple had written the letters themselves as an insurance scam or to escape a bad financial decision. The couple even underwent handwriting analysis to prove their innocence. Nothing ever tied them to the letters, but suspicion clung to them all the same. They filed a lawsuit against the previous owners, claiming they too had received a watcher letter before closing and had failed to disclose it. But the suit was dismissed. The letters continued. The final known letter arrived in 2017, years after they had given up hope. Its tone was darker, angry, ominous. It said, "You are despised by the house, and the Watcher has won." The letter mentioned revenge, spoke of fires, accidents, misfortune. It referenced one of the Broados children by name. Again, it was the last straw. They sold the house in 2019 at a $400,000 loss to a new buyer who, to this day, has received no letters. The Watcher went silent. But that silence is not peace. It is the kind of silence that hums in walls, it creaks in pipes, and lingers like the breath of someone unseen, just behind you. The Broaddus family never got justice, never found closure, never found out who the Watcher really was. Was it a bitter neighbor, a disturbed mind, a former resident, or something older, something that had been watching 657 Boulevard since its first stone was laying? We may never know, but in the quiet town of Westfield, beneath the trimmed hedges and pristine shutters, one truth remains. Someone was watching, and perhaps still is, or always will.
The Toy Box Killer.
In 1999, a small town called Truth or Consequences, located in the state of New Mexico, there lived a quiet monster. What if I told you that a man spent years building a soundproof torture chamber in a trailer in the middle of the New Mexico desert? And that inside, he recorded hours of audio and video of unspeakable acts he proudly orchestrated, while his victims begged for mercy? This isn't the plot of a horror movie. It's real, and the man behind it was known as the Toy Box Killer. David Parker Ray looked like an ordinary guy. A mechanic, soft-spoken, lived in the quiet town of Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. But beneath that calm exterior was a sadistic mind. Ray spent years designing a torture chamber, his so-called toy box, inside a white soundproof trailer. Inside were whips, chains, surgical tools, electric shock devices, and even a gynecological chair with stirrups. He called himself the Dungeon Master. Each day when his victims woke up, he would play what we call the audio tape from hell to his victims. This is what you hear when you wake up. Ray had a chilling ritual. Each victim would wake up drugged, restrained, and disoriented. Then, a cassette tape would play. On it, his voice calmly explained what was about to happen. I'm going to tell you in detail. Hello there, bitch. You're probably wondering why you're here. For days, weeks, sometimes longer, he described what he would do to them each day. But everything changed in 1999 when a woman named Cynthia Vigil managed to escape. She had been chained inside the toy box for 3 days. While Ray was distracted, she found the keys, unlocked herself, and ran barefoot and bleeding into the street wearing nothing but a metal dog collar. She flagged down help at a nearby trailer. That call led police straight to Ray. What they found inside? When police opened the toy box, they were stunned. Over 1,000 items were found: bondage gear, homemade torture devices, even a mirror on the ceiling, so victims could see their own suffering. There were diaries, videotapes, and photographs, evidence of dozens of women. Ray claimed he'd done this to over 60 female victims. But here's the twist. There were no murder convictions. Despite all the evidence, police never found a single body. Without bodies, they couldn't prove murder. Ray was eventually convicted only on kidnapping and torture charges. He was sentenced to 224 years in prison. He died of a heart attack in 2002, just a few years into his sentence. The others were never found. His girlfriend, Cindy Endy, helped him capture and torture women. She testified against him and got 36 years. Police believe many victims were killed and buried in the desert, but no remains have ever been found. The tapes remain, though. Disturbing, graphic, and real. Be careful who you trust. David Parker Ray built a house of horrors in plain sight. No one suspected the quiet man next door was a monster. Sometimes, the audio would say, "I get off on watching you cry." And the scariest part? He may have gotten away with dozens of murders, and we may never know their names. The Toy Box Killer, David Parker Ray, U.S., 1999. He built a soundproof torture chamber called the Toy Box in a trailer and recorded his crimes. Claimed to have abducted, tortured, and possibly killed up to 60 women. Used elaborate bondage tools, electric shock devices, and drugs. Played a chilling audio tape to his victims when they woke up. Was caught when one woman escaped, wearing only a dog collar. He was never convicted of murder, despite overwhelming evidence. Subscribe for more true crime stories. Comment below. Do you think Ray's victims will ever be found? Turn on notifications, because the next story might be even darker.
If you dare, watch the next video above. We promise you won't be disappointed.